Welcome everybody to a review of the latest Star Trek box set, and that is the Next Generation 4 film collection. So we've already had the original motion picture 6 film box set that came out a while ago. I think it was last year. So yeah, it's about time that we got these four, which had the Next Generation crew from the TV series in the 80s, and yeah, I, on the whole, mostly like these films. So we're going to go through each one of them. But yeah, the principal cast for all four films include Patrick Stewart, Jonathan Frakes, Brent Spiner, LeVar Burton, Michael Dorn, Gates McFadden, and Marina Sirtis. And yeah, the first film, it was Star Trek Generations from 1994, directed by David Carson, who's not done any other films that I've seen or know much about, but he did do several of the Next Generation episodes. So that's why he was pretty much given the job for this, given it was the first feature film starring that Next Generation crew. So yeah, clocks in at 118 minutes long, and yeah, had a budget of 35 million, which is pretty good, decent for a film in 7 films in, and yeah, box office over 118 million. So definitely a rousing success, and yeah, that's only 5 million in terms of the budget more than the previous film, but yeah, a massive increase in box office as well. So yeah, and you also got in supporting roles William Shatner, James Doohan, Walter Koenig, and Malcolm McDowell, who is the villain in this film. So yeah, Captain Jean-Luc Picard and the crew of the Enterprise D find themselves at odds with the renegade scientist Soran, who is destroying entire star systems. Only one man can help Picard stop Soran's scheme, and he's been dead for 78 years. So yeah, this is a changing of the guard for the Star Trek universe, which didn't generate all that much love, and I'm not quite sure why, quite frankly. Although I can see why in certain respects, because the last of the original films, the last of the six, The Undiscovered Country, was yeah kind of like a signing off for the original crew. It had their signatures at the end with their pictures and all that, and it felt like a proper closing of that book. But obviously, this reopens that because it has three of the members from the original 6 films, with William Shatner having the biggest role of the bunch. And yeah, so I can see why in that regard, but as a film on its own, in its own right, it's fairly good and a decent start to the 4 films that would feature the Next Generation crew. So yeah, but for yeah, it's the new cast is likable. The action is the best of any Star Trek film had up until this point. The special effects still hold up to this day thanks to a mix of CGI and practical effects, and the score is on point. I will, however, say that not all of the humour works, and the script and plot could have been a little bit more on the interesting side, but it does enough in terms of filling its running time up plenty, and yeah, in a enjoyable enough way. So there's Malcolm McDowell there. So yeah, he's the villain of that film. So yeah, and then in 1996 we had Star Trek First Contact, which was directed by Jonathan Frakes himself. So yeah, kind of continuing the tradition of having at least one of the cast members have a directorial effort in the series, because Leonard Nimoy did 2 of his films, 2 of the 6 films, and yeah, Jonathan Frakes did 2 as well because he did the next film after this. So yeah, this clocks in at 111 minutes long, so slightly shorter than the previous film. Budget went up though by 10 million at 45 million, but then the box office also swelled by going up to 146 million. So yeah, huge success. And yeah, in supporting roles you have the likes of James Cromwell and Alfred Woodard. And yeah, you got the Borg, who are a relentless race of cyborgs, which was looked at in the episodes of the TV series, and who are on a direct course for Earth, violating orders to stay away from the battle. Captain Picard and the crew of the newly commissioned USS Enterprise E pursue the Borg back in time to prevent the invaders from changing Federation history and assimilating the galaxy. So yeah, after the first film, which was likable but flawed, this is the first Star Trek film featuring none of the original cast, and carries the tradition of giving, like I said, one of the cast members a chance at directing. And yeah, this is easily the best film from the new generation films as far as I'm concerned, featuring a menacing force in the form of the Borg. It has a great deal of threat and tension to the whole plot, with the first act having a riveting series of action scenes and a fast-paced feel. The opening battle scene, for instance, is really rather nicely done. And yeah, the additional cast, along with the recurring cast members, are solid. It looks great. Love the score by Jerry Goldsmith, and the script works with its themes of humanity and knowing when to accept defeat. And yeah, like I said, the best of the series and rivals pretty much the best of the series, the 6 the best of the 6 films from the previous crew, and yeah, you have the Borg cube represented on this artwork there. And then in 1998, we were followed up with the series with Star Trek Insurrection, also directed by Jonathan Frakes, and yeah, clocks in at 103 minutes long, so this is the shortest film of the 4. And it had the biggest budget as well, swelling to $70 million, but it did not represent an increase in box office returns, unfortunately, as it only made 117.8. So, yeah, not the lowest amount of the series, and it's only ever so slightly under Star Trek Generations, but obviously that film cost half as much. So, yeah, you can see why the next film would have an even lower budget. So, yeah, it stars in supporting roles F. Murray Abraham, Anthony Zerbe, and Donna Murphy. And yeah, when an alien race and factions within Starfleet attempt to take over a planet that has regenerative properties, it falls upon Captain Picard and the crew of the Enterprise to defend the planet's people, as well as the very ideals upon which the Federation itself was founded upon. So, yeah, far from a perfect entry in the long-running science fiction series, but I can't help but enjoy its self-contained narrative that managed to keep the stakes high while not necessarily being on a needlessly large scale. It was also solidly directed by Frakes, although not quite as well as the previous film. The cast is really good, the score by Jerry Goldsmith is well executed, the action scenes are fun, it looks good, it is decently paced, and it is overall entertaining. So yeah, it's not particularly deep though, and it does feel like a TV episode somewhat stretched out, but on a much bigger budget. However, I find such a film difficult to dislike, and yeah, overall an entertaining film. But yeah, not my favourite of the series. I'd say I probably liked it a little bit less than Generations, but still, it's a solid entry. And yeah, in terms of this film, there's the villain in this film, played by F. Murray Abraham. And then in 2002, we got the 4th and final film, Star Trek Nemesis, directed by Stuart Baird, who did US Marshals, which was a spiritual sequel to The Fugitive, and Executive Decision. And yeah, this clocks in at 117 minutes long, so yeah, the second longest, and yeah, had a budget of 60 million, so like I said, that is lower than the previous film, but also had the worst box office takings, not of only these 4 films, but of the Star Trek series in general, as it only returned 67.3, so being pretty much a big box office bomb for Paramount, and that's why a 5th and final film starring the principal cast in this was not made. But in supporting roles, it stars Tom Hardy and Ron Perlman, and yeah, en route to the honeymoon of William Riker and to Deanna Troi on a home planet of Beta Z, Captain Jean-Luc Picard and the crew of the USS Enterprise received words from Starfleet that a coup has resulted in the installation of a new Romulan political leader, Shinzon, who claims to seek peace with human-backed United Federation of Planets. Once in enemy territory, the captain and his crew make a start in the discovery Shinzon is a human and a slave from the Romulan sister planet Remus, and has a secret, shocking relationship to Picard himself. So yeah, although this entry in the Star Trek series doesn't advance or nor add much to the characters or the setting, unlike the previous 3 films, which did develop the main characters a little bit in some regard, and it is a little bit unimaginative in terms of its plot. I still find this to be really rather fun. The cast is endlessly watchable, especially the principal cast. Jerry Goldsmith once again does a good job with the score. It is decently paced, the action scenes are highly enjoyable, especially in the final act. It mostly looks good, and it has several funny and emotionally resonant moments. That said, I can see why this isn't highly regarded by amongst Star Trek fans and casual viewers alike, as a whole, given its script is underwhelming, and it focuses a little bit too much on the villain as opposed to the main crew. So yeah, and in terms of this film, yeah, there is Tom Hardy, all bold and the like. So yeah, like with the previous box set, you get all films on Blu-ray and 4K, and you get this really rather nice hard box, which I like the artwork of, but I think on the whole I do prefer the original artwork. But yeah, this is still a good new attempt at this artwork in terms of getting across all 4 films. And yeah, like I said, you get all of them on Blu-ray and 4K, same artwork for both. So yeah, in terms of the 4K, no printed discs or anything like that, just all films on their own individual discs. So yeah, I do appreciate that they're all on the individual discs, which I guess is kind of something that has to be done, given they've got a whole host of extras featured on top, and same with the Blu-rays as well, just in blue instead of black. So yeah. And you get a whole host of new extras on this, I believe. You get text commentary by Michael and Denise Okuda. You get a 4-part featurette with Brett Spiner and Data and Beyond. Industrial Light and Magic, The Next Generation HD. Trek Roundtables HD. Library Computer, and a whole host of more. So, yeah. Obviously, it's not as substantial in terms of the number of films as the previous box set. And although, obviously, one of the films in the 6-movie collection was really underwhelming. That's the 5th film, which I find to be worse than any of the other ones in this box set. I find the 5th film to be the worst of the original 10 films. But still, I find these 4 films to be solid in their own right. And yeah, although obviously only one of them is able to match the best of the previous 6 films, which at the end of the day did have a far better hit rate. I find the first 4 to be excellent and the 6th film to be excellent as well. It's only really the 5th film that is a letdown, whereas this maintains a decent level. You've got obviously you got the peak of First Contact, but then it kind of levels out with the last 2 and the first one. So yeah, but on the whole, if you're a fan of the Star Trek films like I am, even though I'm not a massive Star Trek fan overall, you know, I've not watched much of the TV episodes or anything like that, these are well worth getting, as the 4K looks excellent, especially when it comes to the special effects and the practical effects and the general cinematography, and in particular, obviously, the action scenes. So, yeah, well worth getting, although it is a little bit expensive, as it is £80, which is how much the original box set was, but obviously you get less films with this. So, technically, it costs more, but, you know, if you're interested in these films, then it's well worth getting. But if you're a little bit tentative on them, I'd say wait until the sale comes on. But yeah, nonetheless, thank you for watching. I'd like to hear your thoughts on these 4 films, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.